Hello, this is the second week of our summer fighter verse study, and I wanted to take some time to just share a couple of things about this week's verse, 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. But before I do that, I want to let you know to take some time this week to review what you did last week. I'm talking about I've learned in whatever situation I am to be content, and talking about what that contentment is, and even tying it in with the second half of that verse, especially that last verse, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and the fact that that is living in our circumstances and glorifying God in whatever circumstances, situation that we're in. So remember to do that. Take some time, review the big idea, review the verse with the kids or the adults, and be sure to take that time at the beginning to do that. Each week, be sure to do that. Now, as we get into this week's verse, it's 2 Timothy 1, verse 7, and it says, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control." And so there's a couple of things as it relates to this verse. I want to just share quickly here the idea of developing the context. And this is especially, you can do this with the younger kids, especially. There's a matching game that I included in your packet, your email. And that's matching the mother animal to the baby animal. And the idea of that is Timothy has a godly mother and grandmother who spoke truth into his life. And when we see that earlier in this chapter that we're in, 2 Timothy 1. The other thing is he also has a great spiritual father in Paul. And Paul refers to him as a son in the faith. And so that idea of having someone older in the faith coming alongside, or whether that's your parents or a spiritual mentor or whoever, but someone who can remind you that you don't have a spirit of fear, that God has given you a spirit of power and love and self-control. Having those people in your life is important, and we need to seek out those mentor relationships, those help relationships, and just encourage the kids, to be listening to their parents as they give them commands and things that they need to do. And especially as their parents try to point them to God and who God is. And then with even the older kids and especially the adults, encourage them to find someone in their life that could build into them spiritually. And so that could be, once again, it could be a parent, it could be someone from school or work or wherever it is. But finding someone that builds into their lives and helps them to grow. Now, as you get more into the verse, there's 4 key words that you could just kind of take some time, maybe contrast the idea of what fear is and that idea of being controlled by our circumstances is a bad fear. And then talking about the idea of power, love, and self-control. And so just even talking about with some of the kids' activities that I included in there, talking about like superheroes and where their powers come from. But ultimately, we're not the hero in this story. As I mentioned, the Jesus Storybook Bible has a great introduction that talks about that. But it's Jesus, and we have power because of Jesus and what he has already done. So he's the hero of the story, and he empowers us to live the life that we're meant to live. So that's the idea of power, the idea of love. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways that you can go with that, but that idea of we don't need to be controlled by fear. That we should be reaching out and caring for people, even when sometimes that's scary. That's a scary thing to do. And finally, that fourth word is phrase is self-control. And I kind of mentioned it in the notes. That idea of it's not I'm the boss and I'm in control, but it's the idea that God is in control, and I'm not going to allow myself to make those decisions and do the things that I need to do in my own strength and in my own power and for my own selfish gain. but we're allowing ourselves, denying ourselves, and being controlled by God. So something I wrote in here is self-control is not, I want what I want and I'm going to get it. Self-control is, I want to please God and do what he wants me to do. So thinking about that idea, thinking about applications, thinking about that idea of not living in fear, but living in power, love, and self-control. And when we think about that, we're not controlled by our circumstances. We're not living in fear, but we're living in power, love, and self-control. And we're trusting in what God has done for us through Jesus Christ. So just want to encourage you to do that. Want to encourage you to have those conversations in your class where you just talk about what it means to love people, what it means to trust in Christ for our power and our strength and not ourselves, and what it means to be self-controlled and not just doing what we want to do. So encourage you to do that and have a great time with your class, continuing this study. And like I said before, if you have any questions, anything that you need, feel free to ask. Thanks.